My friend Ryan shares a story of a man named Mr. Bai who was a professor at Beijing University, known as the Harvard of China. He made a joke in class about the Communist Party to a group of students. One of those students reported his joke to the police. The next day, officers burst into Mr. Bai's office and brought him to a remote, cold communist prison, without warning, without a trial. He woke up that morning as a professor chairing one of the most prestigious academic positions in the world. By nightfall, he was behind bars in prison. Chinese prisons at this time were some of the worst places on earth, horrible layers of disease, torture, and death. Mr. Bai quickly plunged into depression and despair. His depression led to thoughts of suicide over the course of weeks. One afternoon, in a cloud of sadness, he brought himself to the window of his 8th-story prison cell. The Chinese did not put windows in the higher floors of prison cells. If a prisoner decided to throw himself to his death, it was not a problem. Mr. Bai's heart raced as he looked out and thought of jumping. And then it happened. He heard a small voice say, "Don't go. Don't go. Don't go." He sat down in the middle of his cell, desperate. There on the hard concrete floor, memories flooded his mind. A friend of his, a foreign professor who was a Christian, had shared the gospel with him. Mr. Bai prayed, "Jesus, if you are real, please bring me this forgiveness and peace my friend told me you promised. In turn, I will offer my life and service to you." He looked up and, the sky was never bluer, the sun was never brighter through the open hole of a window, and I had joy rise up inside of my heart like I have never felt before. This distinguished professor threw all his reservations away and shouted out, "I have bright future in Jesus Christ." The guards heard him and cruelly told him to be quiet. But his joy could not be contained. He kept shouting it over and over until they came into the cell and beat him. A person in a prison freed by believing the gospel of Jesus is freer than any person outside of prison without the gospel. Mr. Bai was eventually released and started several orphanages in the interior of China, caring for the poor and leading many to Christ. He had a bright future in Jesus Christ. To this day his joy is infectious when you meet him. And he will tell you the joy he had in prison is the same he has to this day. Every person feels at times they are in a prison of their own making, trapped by thoughts, habits, actions, and a nagging past that will not let them go. The gospel teaches us that the worst of all prisons is the one we make for ourselves. The cells of this prison are barred with our insecurities, with a deep awareness that something is not right inside us, that something is deeply broken. We carry this with us like chains around our necks. It is the human condition. This will only change if something drastic happens. The gospel is the most drastic of measures. It's a bloody cross. It's the death of God Himself for our sake. It's the utter smashing defeat of death itself and a glorious resurrection to show God's love and power throughout all eternity. Scripture reminds us that we must pay close attention to what we have heard, especially when it comes to the gospel, Hebrews 2:1. The most important sermon you will ever preach is the one you preach to your own heart, daily reminding your heart, "I have a bright future in Jesus Christ."
So we must listen very carefully to the truth we have heard, or we may drift away from it.